limited, space, and it's not a school that's conducive to building more. But the other schools do have opportunities to expand capacity in them. And so those schools, we'd look at adding capacity, and potentially some boundary adjustments would be these. And then the other idea here that could be developed in here and could be looked at further is addressing potentially a second dual immersion program to balance our schools. And we'd look at which campus would that be the best fit for. But like similarly to Valley View, who you draw some kids, but you also lose some kids to others. So it's a little bit more complex, but that could be part of that mix of solutions. Again, I'm not going to go through this. The board and community have seen this, but I will point out some key things. Obviously, the current E10 would solve the Donlin issue. It does build a new school and wouldn't require boundary changes. It is the most expensive option in terms of construction, and it also adds probably the most in terms of operational cost, and also utilizes most of our funds. But it does create capacity, and it does address a lot of things, but it also creates some other imbalances with you're going to have in the future schools that are going to be very small, and some schools are going to be very large. In terms of option B, it solves, again, the overflow problem, doesn't need boundary changes. However, it's going to lead to that imbalanced schools down the line as well. It is less expensive than option A. However, there's going to be some operational inefficiencies that will come about from, again, large schools and small schools. Increasing capacity and boundary changes. This does eliminate the need for a new school. It does reduce operational costs as it optimizes usage of current schools that have space, and therefore reduces long-term operational costs. It does build capacity within the district in a more uniform manner that might potentially also help with any future type of construction and development that might go on. Because the buildings are going to be smaller at each of the sites, it probably is the fastest construction as well. However, the drawbacks is it does carry boundary changes. There's going to be possibly some impacts to our school routes. And there is also going to be impacts to more sites in terms of construction and those things going on. Potential, again, we've looked at, initial passes that because of the less facilities that we'd have to build, it does appear to be less costly than options A and B. It also frees up our fund $40 that could be utilized for other district needs that we may have. And that could be like, we want to be able to do additional work on our fields or anything else that does free up some of our other funds that we're currently having to allocate to this project. And then lastly, the no project, which really doesn't solve the current problems, doesn't increase our capacity, but it does have the least cost impact to the district, but continues our problems that we currently have. So in terms of the next steps, and I apologize again that the presentation took longer than I wish, and it is towards the end of the night, but we are seeking direction in terms of moving forward with option A, or moving forward and submitting the plans and providing further analysis, and then or pausing the project and then doing more analysis for a final decision. And so again, and there could be other direction or other options that the board may want to give to us. So at this time, Steve, I'm going to turn it back to you to ask questions and continue the discussion.
Ahmed, if we submit the plans, am I correct that you have 2 years after you get them back to start construction, or is there a different time limit?
2 years is the time limit without any kind of other extraordinary request. That's the safe zone. You know, if it goes past that 2-year mark and you have some extraordinary, you can always, you know, ask those. But again, it takes you out of that safe zone. But 2 years is the
2 years too.
Yeah, 2 years is your window. No questions, no issues within that 2 year.
Could I ask a question of my fellow board members? When I looked at the bond language, because Ahmed wasn't here, I wasn't here, Dave wasn't here, I know it says, and construct a new elementary school. And what was, when the team met and put the language together and everything, was it, I know that we could deviate from that, but what was the tenor of that meeting? What do you think was promised as such, or wasn't promised, or, you know, whatever?
Valerie, you or me?
You know what? I would say that, you know, it was all based on a lot of it was based on our demographic projections, which said we needed, actually it said we needed 2 elementary schools. So that kind of guided the conversation a bit. And as well, I think community-wise, putting a bond, which is typically pays for brick and mortar, I think it, you know, there was a benefit to put a new school since we needed a new school and we had a lot of overflow students, you know, that warranted it. So that kind of was the direction we, you know, we voted on the language. So.
I would just add that at the time, I have to say I wasn't enthusiastic about a new school at all. But what I said, and I still hold to this, is that if we were going to put language in the bond measure that said we were going to build a new school, I felt, and I said this at the time, that if we decided not to build a new school, I would not want us to issue the bonds for that. Because while legally we are absolutely within our rights to allocate dollars and reprioritize, and we can't spend the dollars on anything that's not on the list, but we can. But bonds, you run out of money off your bond list all the time. So there's always things that don't get built that you've put in your bond language in the beginning.
Pleasanton is a good example.
You know, it's just the way it works. So. But we were pretty explicit at the time about the $35 million being for a new school. So even though I wasn't enthusiastic about a new school at the time, that was what I said. So, you know, that's kind of where I feel on this. What I wanted to ask is, you know, so thank you for the 2-year comment. So I was concerned about the financial circumstances with COVID and all this stuff, but it's good to know about the 2 years. What if we went ahead and with the plans to build E10 and we did boundary changes? Because then I feel like, because even with E10, we've still got, you know, this huge influx in that neck of the woods. And, you know, nobody likes boundary changes, but actually at this time when we've got, this is going to sound terrible, please don't quote me the way it's going to come out, but we have this sort of influx point where, you know, people are not as super connected to their school sites in this year. And we could have conversations, I think, that would be less emotional about the potential of boundary changes. And to be fair, we've asked about boundary changes before, and the staff at the time said that the demographers had looked at that and because of, you know, geography and major streets and different things, that it didn't really make a lot of sense. But I would be interested to hear, Ahmad, what you have come up with the idea about that. So that's what I would say.
You know, can I I'm very sorry about interrupting. I think we're going to run out of time in our meeting, and this may be our last item of the night. I would ask that President Maher, maybe before we start having our board discussion, we take public comment, because if there are, I would imagine we have public comment and they've been waiting all this time. Can we get their comment and then we can have our discussion and probably have to wrap it up?
I mean, wouldn't bother me a bit. Okay, if that's the direction of the board, would you mind? Get public comment?
Sounds good.
Okay, Patrick.
All right, President Maher, we have 2 public comments this evening. The first comes from Chong Wong and then Kathleen Rugsiger.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Chong Wang. I'm running for PUSD School Board this year. I have questions about the B and C options. How much do they cost respectively? And where is the budget from? And how are we going to handle $35 million in I-1 bond if there is no, if there is not a new school? That's it. Thank you.
All right, Kathleen, go ahead.
Okay. So first of all, thank you to Joan Lorson for recalling that she and 3 other board members did state that they would give the $35 million back if the school was not built. And I think that's going to be a very big issue with the community in terms of trust. When we look at taking that money and adding to other schools, you are essentially decreasing the capacity of your libraries, your playing fields, your multi-purpose rooms on every one of those campuses. So if we can build out the Donlin School and do the boundary changes and hit some kind of effective way to address enrollment, that'd be great. And not building the school, I think it isn't going to get cheaper. So, but the main thing I want to stress with all of you tonight is that 4 board members promised the community they would not bond that $35 million if the school was not built. Thank you.
Back to the board questions, discussion.
Yeah, I don't have.
I have a few. Oh, I'm sorry. I just have some comments. One question, and you don't have to do this now. The question on the sunk costs, basically. It sounds like there's about $750,000 that are we wouldn't recover if we stop now. If that's correct. So just at some point, I'd like to know, I know it was mentioned architectural services, so I'm kind of a little unclear on why we couldn't use some of those things that we've done with that 750 if it was paused. But that's just one question that can be answered later. Just the comments that I want to say is that, I think this enrollment decrease probably is a bit of a blip due to COVID. I would imagine some of those students at least will come back at some point. I think, with the demographic projections, which we've always based our, based all of our estimations on, have said 2 new elementary schools. So yes, we're experiencing a little dip that might be just a little hiccup for now, but I think one of the things to consider though is the regional housing number allocations that will come out next year with the city. And those are kind of a mandate, and it's already been estimated that it's going to be about close to 5,000 units where the city's going to have to zone for. So that's a little unusual, and it's a lot higher than I think was ever anticipated. So that's something that will be on the horizon. And yes, those students are going to come right away, but that's something to keep in mind as we move forward. And I think with the operating costs, I think it's kind of a moot point to just be frank here. We've already had the conversation basically because we voted on the bond language and the voters approved it. The voters approved a new school, then the operating costs go along with it. And as such, we have to budget for it. Those sunk costs almost pay for a year's worth of operating costs right there. And that's what we would lose if we didn't go forward. So that's just another thing to consider. I think, with the operating costs as well, if we're going to have the conversation every time a new school is going to be built that it takes this much then, we'll never build another school because we'll always think it takes up too much of our budget. So I think it's just something that we have to account for and find a creative way to do it. I think we might be able to value engineer it some more, and maybe there are ways to share costs with the existing site at Donlin that we could make it less. So, I have a really hard time when it's a bond that the language was specific and it says we're going to build a school. I think we need to build the school. If we can pause it, we had this scheduled to start next year. If President Maher brought up the point about pausing, if we could pause it an extra year, I think if we're able to do that, I think that would be fine, and that would account for this COVID situation. And what Trustee Larson said, we all did agree, or at least most of us, I guess, about not selling the $35 million bonds. We will not sell them if we don't do the school. So that is another option. But I think the capacity issue is going to be real, and maybe not this year or even next year, but in a few years, 4 or 5 years, I think it is. So I'm going to leave it there because I know we're running out of time, but those are my thoughts.
There is no action on this agenda item. I think you've given feedback, and Ahmad and the team, that we can sit down and noodle on it a bit more, and we'll bring it back in some form at another meeting if that's okay.
Okay, just one quick question that might think about the $14 million over the $35 million. Could that be used to increase the capacity? Part of it. I know it won't do it all, but some of it, and then we give the $35 million back, or we don't draw on it.
So yeah, if we were not to sell 35 million of our bond, and we were going to look at a different way of solving some of the capacity and overflow issues, then we would reprioritize the rest of the bond dollars, and look at we would look at those outside, be it Fund 40 and Fund, the developer fee funds would still be able to support that. So that's about, between that, it's about 9 million that we're bringing in from those two funds. And in addition, we'd have to reprioritize some of the other projects.
And then lastly, have we thought about having any type of community meeting, staff meeting before we start going down any of these roads?
Well, that definitely would happen once we we didn't want to go down any road without, seeking, talking to the board, because the current road is to build E10, and it was asked of us to bring it back. But if any, different direction was given in the meantime, then that definitely would become part of it. Any type of boundary changes would definitely require input from community and building a committee and so on and so forth.
Jamie, did you have some comments or questions?
Yes. I am just curious. So when we talk about these operating costs, don't we already start a habit? Because technically we already have those students. So we already have the revenue from their students. We're just moving it to another site. Is that not the right thinking?
You're adding another school.
So you're thinking about revenue. The revenue is there. It's the expenditures. Right now, we're expending. Right now, through the movement of students, we have created, if you look at those enrollments, pretty like similar size schools. There's a few a little bit larger, a few a little bit smaller, but they're all in that 600 range. And so we're able to accommodate those kids by running the schools all with that kind of basic underlying package. When you build a new school, and now you're going to have some schools that are going to be a little bit smaller. They still need their principal, they still need their VP, they still have those basic needs. They may have less teachers, but they're going to need those basic needs to run, custodian, maintenance and all that. So when you then have a new school, you basically need that package that goes along with running it. So that's what I was talking about, a little bit of a imbalance that gets created. But some of that can be mitigated. It could be mitigated with the way we run Donlan and E10 and potentially looking at some shared services and stuff like that.
Right. And then my other question is, when you did the chart with the numbers and you had the east side in there, I didn't see that you had the mall development in there. From what I understand, that project is, could be a lot sooner than we think, maybe 2 or 3 years at the 2-3 years.
Are you talking about in Stone Ridge, the large development that's been approved, but the construction hasn't started?
Yeah, at the mall.
Yeah, those numbers are captured in Lidixon. So if you look at Lidixon's numbers over the years, they are going to grow, and that's why Lidixon, I believe, gets to closer to 800 or something like that.
Okay, and then how would we add space to Lidixon?
So,
go ahead. I was saying you already not planting below, but you have it stubbed out.
Yeah. So
I know we have it stubbed out, but it's still going to cost money.
Yeah, there is space for a classroom building there. So again, if we were going to utilize Measure I-1 dollars, we'd have to reprioritize those dollars to spend it on that facility. We didn't really look at tinkering between Lidixon and Hearst because Hearst is also pretty high in enrollment. But I also believe some of Lidixon students do say, oh, can we go to Donlan? If Donlan suddenly was opened up with an E10 and more capacity, you may get some more families that would request that transfer.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, I'm really feeling, after thinking about this for the past couple months after Mark first brought up maybe pausing on E10, I don't know. I think we need to go forward with it too. So.
Well, no decision was to be made tonight.
Yeah, I know, but that's, I'm still feeling like we need to go forward.
And I just want to say we have 16 minutes and a bunch of things to actually vote on.
You know what? Can I ask one further question? But I thought we had to get our documents into DSA. I thought that's why we were having this on the agenda at this time. So don't you need direction in order to either do that by the end of October or not? Or am I missing something?
December he's going to send it.
If we don't get any definitive direction today, we will continue on that road. So that road is to submit the documents in December. We can bring it back in November, the last meeting before that we submit it, to do another check with the board. But again, that is the only direction we have, is to continue with the E10 and to submit it unless the board gives us another direction after this report.
Okay. It was said fall last, I believe John had said fall. So that I was thinking it was the end of October. Okay.
Yeah, I think we were shooting, how architectural plans and those work is always a little bit, and the pandemic has not helped us, but we are still, the team is still working on it. They do plan to get it in December.
Can I make some comments?
You have several items that they would like to get passed tonight.
You got 1 minute. 1 minute.
Thanks, guys. So I was the one who originally raised this, and I don't get a chance to talk. That's nice. So just real quick then, Thank you, Ahmad, for a really comprehensive presentation. That was really well done, and for coming up with some creative alternatives. I would just like to say that, you know, as a board, one of our number one jobs is fiduciary responsibility, and we did allocate $35 million from a bond to do this, but now we're talking about a lot more. And so we're pulling from other areas where we could be using the funds for other purposes. As Mr. Wang asked, there's cost estimates for doing these other things, and the option B was, I think, 30 million, and option C was like $22 million. So quite a bit less than the new school, but also providing probably a better capacity adjustment than what we have there with the E10 school. And the final thing I would say is this, and this is one thing I'd like to correct maybe on, is a new development, the East Side development, the developer will not pay for a new school. What we learned from the city meeting the last couple weeks ago is the developer may allocate land for it. We're going to need money to build a new school over there, and that would mean build. And think about it: if they start building that out in 2023, when do we have to start building a new school for that area? Think about building a new school quite a bit sooner. And so I think we need to be really thinking about saving, and I agree with what everybody said, we should not spend the remaining $34 million on something else other than, because we did make that promise. I agree with that. But I think we should save that and prepare to use that for the East Side where we're really going to need it. And then maybe use some of the money, as Trustee Maher suggested, that we have projected above and beyond that $34 million, $35 million. We could use that to start building capacity in places like Leidixon, where it really is, as you say, Trustee, is really where it's going to be needed earlier than anything else. So I'm okay with proceeding with the DSA work, because if we decide to go forward with it, but I'm just going to say, I don't think this is a very wise financial decision for the district. I think there's better ways to address the capacity, given the realities that we have today. I agree, when we did the bond, there was a different set of realities. The realities that we have today are not the same. And so I think we need to look at it more going forward, look at the options, really weigh what's the best for our community, what's the best for our students. And I'm not sure that this Donlin school is the best thing for our students.
Don't we have to spend the bond money by a certain time, so we can't really save it?
Well, by a certain time, but yeah.
Okay, well, so we can get the other items in. Ahmad, do you have enough direction to move forward a little bit?
Well, yeah. There is an expiration on the bond, right?
Yes.
The bond, we haven't sold all the bond dollars. I mean, it would be different if we've sold a certain amount. We're spending that amount down, and so it's about we do have flexibility in that area. I will bring this item back for further discussion in November.
Okay.
Okay. 12.5. To approve delegation of authority for superintendent to enter into a construction contract for the portable replacement and new science building at Amador and Foothill.
I move approval of 12.5.
Second.
I have a question on 12.5. I just want to, and for Ahmed, I just want to, just on the record, there's no issue. All of the subcontractors that are associated with this project, with this contractor, I should say, are all in good standing, correct?
Yes, the lowest bidder, Midstate, their bid is complete. It has been verified by our team, both our construction management team, John himself, and our attorney have reviewed it, and it will be our recommendation with this action to award it to the lowest responsive bidder, which is Midstate. And that bid, it will save the district a considerable amount of dollars.
Could I also?
But to be clear, this is to grant authority to award a contract. This is not to award the contract.
Right.
Right. Don't we have board policy that says that we don't have to always go for the lowest bid? We're supposed to go for the best business, the best.
Can we do 12.8 also along with this one? Which is
So
report.
We already have a motion on the floor, Steve.
And a second.
Okay.
Sorry,
Trustee
John.
Larson,
Aye.
Trustee Miller,
Aye.
Trustee Yee,
Yes, aye.
Trustee Arkin.
Aye.
Aye. 12.6. Was this blue
You gonna
sheet?
vote, Mr. Maher?
Yes. You have a comment?
No, you didn't vote. I just want to get you on the
Aye.
record.
Aye.
All right. 12.6.
12.6. And was this blue sheeted? But I got something from Lanita.
12.6. Let me look at that.
There was a date.
This is the one we added the bid tally sheet.
Yes.
All right.
So as needed.
12.6. Report discussion, possible action to approve agreement with Matrix Scope Engineering Laboratories Incorporated for special testing and inspection for the portable replacement and new science building projects at Amador and Foothill.
The write-up was comprehensive. I move approval as blue sheeted the bid tally sheet was on 12.5, right? Or no, 12.6 as blue sheeted for 12.6.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay. Trustee Miller,
Aye.
Trustee Larson,
Aye.
Trustee Arkin,
Aye.
Trustee Yee,
Aye.
Trustee Maher, aye. 12.7. Report discussion and possible action to approve amendment number 1 to Sujimura Finley Architects contracts on the HVAC and roofing projects at Alisal Fairlands Valley View.
This is a lot more money, but I did read the entire thing. And this is an amendment on the contract, which is spelled out in the attachment.
Yep.
So I'll move approval of 12.7.
Second.
Okay, Trustee Yee,
Aye.
Trustee Larson,
Aye.
Trustee Arkin,
Aye.
Trustee Miller,
Aye.
Trustee Maher, aye. Patrick, I take it I have had no public comment on these? I guess.
You are
Patrick?
correct.
Okay, interrupt me if we do. Okay, 12.8.
We have no public comments.
Okay, report discussion and possible action to approve delegation of authority for superintendent to enter into an agreement with project inspector for the portable replacement and new science building, Amador and Foothill. This was blue sheeted also, I believe.
Yes, this had the current status had a October 8th date in it, which is today. And the corrected date as blue sheeted was October 22nd because they need the authority prior to our October 22nd board meeting. With that, I'll move approval of 12.8 as blue sheeted.
Second.
Okay, Trustee Yee,
Aye.
Trustee Larson,
Aye.
Trustee Miller,
Aye.
Trustee Arkin,
Aye.
Trustee Maher, aye. 12.9. Carried. 12.9. Report discussion and possible action to award an RFP 2020-21.01 Special Education Transportation Services to multiple vendors. And we've been doing this for the last couple of years, correct?
Yeah.
Yes, and this is just an update to an RFP that was issued last year. We lost some due to the pandemic. We lost several different vendors, and so we went out with a new RFP. We got a few of our old vendors came back, but we also picked up a new one, and this will allow us to serve our special ed students similarly to the past.
And they'll follow all regulations and safe and everything.
Yes.
We have complied with Article 10 of the CBA for CSEA, have been notified of the transportation contracting out.
Okay, there's a motion.
I'll go ahead and move approval of 12.9.
Second.
I'll second.
Okay, Trustee Miller,
Aye.
Arkin,
Aye.
Trustee Larson,
Aye.
Trustee Yee,
Aye. And why wasn't this just on consent?
That's a good question.
Yeah, it could have been on consent, guys.
Well noted.
Aye. Trustee Meyer, aye. Trustee, item 1210.
Just voting out.
Report, discussion, and possible action to approve a provisional internship permit. Mr. Hernandez.
Yeah, so this is a request to approve a PIP for a Miss Jordan Davison, who's a mild to moderate teacher. She is in a program at Brandon. She is needing to complete her coursework, but she can and is currently a teacher with us. The ask from administration is to approve the request for a waiver for her so that she has one more year to complete her requirements at her university.
Any questions, concerns?
I'll move approval of 12.10. This could have also been on consent, guys.
Okay,
I'll
second.
second. I'll
Okay.
second.
Trustee Yee,
Aye.
Trustee Arkin,
Aye.
Trustee Larson,
Aye.
Trustee Maher, aye. Trustee Miller.
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries. 1211. Report, discussion, and possible action to change the December 2020 regular board organizational meeting date.
So this is a request to change the regularly scheduled December board meeting due to the requirement to submit financial paperwork on December 15th. And so we're moving from the 18th to the 15th so that we can have that paperwork submitted on time.
This been on a consent agenda too?
Yep.
I'll move approval of 1211.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay. Trustee Miller,
Aye.
Trustee Arkin,
Aye.
Trustee Larson,
Aye.
Trustee Yee,
Aye.
Trustee Maher, aye. Okay, any board reports and requests?
No, I would just say the request is that we have to look at our presentation time, our board discussion time, and our public comment. I think we need to make things, it's a little stressful rushing through this, and I think it's not really serving anybody. So I think we just need to kind of look at that.
Yeah, and I mean, if people are going to make public comment on stuff, it can't be at 11 o'clock. And our staff looks really like just totally eyes bugging out. I would suggest that anytime we have a discussion about reopening schools, it's a separate meeting. It just needs to be a separate meeting. No, Mark? Mark, you're muted, so we can't hear you.
Just factor, so it's going to be 2 hours, right? I mean,
yeah.
But we almost have to have an update every single time.
We do.
It seems like, right?
We do.
So we're just going to have to put other.
Maybe we'll look to see what we can put on the consent instead of putting.
We would have saved 3.5 minutes had we had the consent agenda.
Also, not that anybody's still listening, but tomorrow is the kickoff of the PPIE Week of the Stars. So go to ppie.org and check out the action items.
Anything else?
Vote.
Vote. Don't forget to vote. Yes. See everybody on our next meeting, October 22nd, 2020. And with that, this meeting is adjourned at 11:29.
Nice.
Thanks, Lenita.